HOA, fined me for fishing, so I bought the lake and banned the entire neighborhood. The sun was just starting to dip behind the trees, painting the lake in hues of gold and orange. Daniel sat quietly on the weathered dock, his fishing line rippling against the calm water. For him, this wasn't about the fish, it was about peace. After months of working long shifts and carrying the weight of life's struggles, the lake was the one place he could breathe. But that peace shattered in seconds. A woman in a crisp polo shirt stormed down the path, clipboard in hand, her expression sharp as a blade. She didn't greet him, didn't ask politely. Instead, she barked, "You can't fish here, it's against HOA rules." Daniel blinked, stunned, as she handed him a bright yellow slip with bold letters across the top. Violation, a fine of $250 for illegal fishing. His jaw tightened. This was his lake, his sanctuary. And now? Strangers thought they had the right to take it away from him. Daniel had moved into the lakeside community 3 years earlier. Back then, he believed the homeowners association was just a formality, rules about mowing lawns or keeping paint colors uniform, nothing serious. But over time, he'd seen their power grow. They monitored driveways, counted fence posts, and even dictated what flowers residents could plant. Still, he never imagined they'd claim ownership of the lake he loved. That evening, he walked home gripping the violation slip in his hand, each step heavier than the last. His wife Clara saw his face before she saw the paper. "What happened?" she asked softly. Daniel told her, the words tumbling out with frustration. Clara's eyes darkened. "They can't do this. You've fished there for years." But Daniel already knew the HOA thrived on control, and they had no intention of backing down. The following week, Daniel received a letter in the mail. It wasn't just about fishing, it was a formal notice. Continued violations will result in escalating fines and potential legal action. His hands trembled as he read it aloud. Clara placed her hand over his, steady but firm. "They're bullying you, Daniel." He nodded. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about principle. He decided to attend the next HOA meeting. The room was cold, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The same woman who fined him Karen, the board president, smiled tightly as she shuffled her papers. When Daniel spoke up, the room grew tense. "This lake has always been part of the community. Fishing harms no one. Why the fine?" Karen leaned back, her smile widening. "Rules are rules. You signed when you moved in." Laughter echoed from a few board members. Daniel clenched his fists, humiliated yet burning with determination. That night, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his father, who taught him to fish on that very lake when he was a boy. Memories of early mornings, laughter, and lessons about patience filled his mind. He couldn't let those memories be stolen by a group of power-hungry neighbors. Clara whispered in the dark, "Don't let them win." He knew she was right. But how? The HOA held all the cards, or so they thought. Then, a spark of an idea flickered in his mind. Daniel remembered hearing years ago that the lake was technically owned by a private trust, not the HOA. They merely managed the access rules. What if he could change that? His chest tightened with possibility. Maybe he could turn the tables. The next morning, Daniel began digging. He spent hours at the county records office, flipping through dusty files, searching for any detail about the lake's ownership. The clerk raised an eyebrow when he requested old property deeds, but Daniel didn't care. Finally, he found it. The lake was still under the name of an old landowner's estate, never officially transferred to the HOA. His heart raced. Could it be available for purchase? He hired a lawyer to investigate. Weeks crawled by, tension hanging in the air, every time he passed HOA board members glaring at him. Finally, the lawyer called. "It's complicated, but yes, the estate is willing to sell." The HOA never filed for full ownership. Daniel nearly dropped the phone. For the first time in months, hope surged through him. When Daniel told Clara, her eyes widened. "You mean, you could own the lake?" He nodded, unable to hide the smile breaking across his face. But there was a catch: the price. It was more than their savings, more than he could comfortably afford. Clara bit her lip. "This isn't just about money anymore. This is about standing up to them." Daniel agreed, though doubt gnawed at him. He reached out to a bank for a loan, explaining his plan. The banker chuckled at first but eventually leaned forward, intrigued. "So you'd own the lake, and the HOA would have no control?" Daniel's steady reply, "Exactly." After grueling negotiations, papers were signed. When he finally held the deed in his hand, his knees nearly buckled. The lake was his. His sanctuary was safe. But this was just the beginning. The news spread like wildfire. At first, neighbors didn't believe it. Karen stormed to his driveway, clipboard in hand. "This is ridiculous. You can't just buy the lake." Daniel met her glare calmly, holding up the deed. "Actually, I can, and I did." Her face drained of color, her voice cracking. "This changes nothing." But she knew it changed everything. Overnight, Daniel went from being a target of ridicule to the most powerful resident in the neighborhood. Yet with power came decisions. He had to choose: would he allow fishing for himself alone, or open it for others? Clara urged him to think carefully. "Don't become like them," she warned. Daniel nodded, but deep down, anger still burned. He remembered the humiliation, the fines, the laughter at the meeting. He wasn't ready to forgive. The first order of business was clear. The HOA's fishing ban was no longer valid. Daniel drafted a new set of rules, legally enforceable as the lake's owner. He sent notices to every household, effective immediately. Fishing privileges are revoked for all HOA members. The neighborhood erupted. Some begged, some shouted, and others accused him of revenge. Karen was livid. She called emergency meetings, tried to rally residents against him, even threatened lawsuits. But Daniel had done his homework. Legally, they had no claim. Each time Karen tried to challenge him, she hit a wall of documentation. Still, the tension in the community grew thicker. Daniel couldn't walk down the street without whispers following him. He didn't correct, at least not yet. Justice tasted too sweet. Weeks turned into months. The lake sat quiet, no longer dotted with fishing poles and chatter. Daniel found peace in its stillness, but he also noticed something unexpected along. Neighbors avoided him, treating him as an outsider. Even Clara began to worry. Daniel, you proved your point, but is this what you wanted? To be isolated? He tried to brush it off, but her words lingered. One afternoon, he saw children standing at the edge of the dock, fishing poles in hand, their parents nervously pulling them back. Their eyes met his, hopeful and sad. Something tugged inside him. Memories of his own childhood surfaced again. He wondered, was he becoming the very thing he fought against? Karen, however, hadn't given up. She filed complaints with county offices, hoping to trip Daniel up on technicalities. Inspectors came, checked water quality, surveyed the shoreline. Each time, Daniel stood firm, presenting documents and permits. He was always one step ahead, but the battle drained him. Clara's voice grew sharper at night. Daniel, this is consuming you. It's not just about fishing anymore. It's about revenge. He hated admitting she was right. He had won, but at what cost? The lake was his, yet the joy of fishing had dimmed. The water reflected not peace, but conflict. One evening, Daniel sat alone on the dock, staring at his reflection. He realized he had a choice to make, not just for himself, but for everyone. The following week, Daniel called for a community gathering at the lake. Curiosity pulled neighbors in. Karen arrived, two arms crossed, suspicion written all over her face. Daniel stood before them, his voice steady. I bought this lake because I was pushed too far. I wanted justice, but I've learned something: control doesn't bring peace. It just creates walls between us. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Daniel took a breath. Starting today, the lake is open again for everyone. No fines, no ridiculous rules. Just respect for the water and for each other. Gasps, then cautious smiles. Children cheered. Parents nodded with relief. Karen, however, seethed silently, her power crumbling. From that day forward, the lake changed. Families returned, laughter filled the air, and children skipped stones across the water. Daniel still fished, but now with neighbors by his side. Clara smiled more, her eyes glowing with pride. The community, once divided, slowly healed. As for Karen, her reign over the HOA faltered. Without control of the lake, her grip weakened, and residents began to question her leadership. Daniel didn't seek revenge anymore. He didn't need to. He had found something greater: unity, respect, and the quiet satisfaction of standing his ground without losing his humanity. Sitting on the dock one evening, rod in hand, Daniel whispered to the water, "This lake will never be theirs. Again, it belongs to all of us." And in that moment, peace returned at last.